Fans of the Horus Heresy, thank you very much for joining me for another how-to video. And this is part 2 of how to fill voids and imperfections on Forge World parts. So I'd done the first video and in that I showed you where I used some Milliput to fill some imperfections on some parts from a Mark 1C Deimos pattern Rhino. Those parts are now set, or the Milliput on those parts is now set. So this is just probably going to be a quick one where I just show you how I do some filing and sanding to get that looking nice and neat. I'm probably also going to talk a little bit more about the relative pros and cons of Milliput and Green Stuff, or should I say Kneadatite, to give it its correct product name. Anyway, right, so what we got, so you'll probably remember this guy who got one of the resin hull sides from the Dreadnought. You can see here we've got various bits of Milliput that I'd filled on this guy to fill some voids, cavities and air bubbles. And you can see that that's fairly rough and ready. And that is not a look I would want to carry through into the final model. So all we need to do is sand down this Milliput a little bit to get it looking smooth and in profile with the particular area of the part that it's filling. So I've got this one, and then I've also got the mine plow as well. And there's quite a lot of filling on the mine plow. So I'm going to show you a bit around that, and that's there's substantially more work to do on this than on the hull side. But let's make a start with this piece of hull. Right, I guess the first thing, actually before I talk about Milliput characteristics, tools. So similar tools to last time, we've got the brush, we have the tapered, flat, half curved needle file, like before. Oops, oh, it's gone. We have a razor sharp new scalpel, and then we also have a blunt scalpel. Now the blunt scalpel may well be useful here for doing some of the filing down work. You don't necessarily always want a really sharp knife to work with. So those tools, right, so let's have a look at our bit, and I'm going to start with the needle file, and we'll begin on a simple area. So if you recall, this was sort of a void where the mold had sucked in, shall we say. So I filled it, and now I'm just going to sand it gently with the tip of this needle file to smooth it off. Now, a note on filling with Milliput, depending what you believe, setting at room temperature, so around 20 degrees C, Milliput will dry in a few hours' time. However, I always try to leave it 2 days, so 48 hours from when I mix it and apply it to when I come to file on it. And that's because when it achieves its initial hardness, it still has a slightly, rubber is not the word, sticky texture probably is a better way of putting it. Its texture is still slightly sticky, and if you file it, say 1 day after it's set, what you find is you can get a lot of Milliput sticking in the teeth of needle files, etc. Oops, I'm struggling a bit with the focus here. Come on, gods of focus, help me out. Yeah, there we go. There's a little bit there, but that's not too bad. But yeah, if you particularly only like a day after applying it, I find that you can do it, but you have to keep cleaning your file if you're doing a lot of filing. So unless I'm in a real rush, I tend to just work on another project in the meantime and then come back to it after a couple of days. It just makes it, the texture is just a bit better to work with. So I've switched over to my blunt craft knife here. I'm just using it to smooth the surface down a bit more. Another, to return, in the first video I was debating about the relative merits of green stuff and Milliput, and there's a couple of things that I didn't say that that were relevant in terms of the benefits and advantages and disadvantages of the two. An advantage of Milliput I didn't mention is its low cost. In the UK, for £6 or £7 you get this pack, which is a 4 ounce or 113.4 grams pack. For the same amount you're going to get a small amount of Kneadatite or green stuff. I mean, even obviously with green stuff, my brother-in-law, who sculpts his own models, he never buys from Games Workshop because he thinks their Kneadatite sits on the shelf too long, so he buys from like an eBay supplier or something, and he also stores it in the fridge, interestingly. So I think it's supposed to prolong its life. Another tip with Milliput, another disadvantage with green stuff is you often, if you buy the stuff where it comes with yellow and the blue strip in parallel, the section in the middle can actually start to react and set, so you often have to cut that out. So you actually over time you can lose some of your green stuff or Kneadatite just to that reaction. You can also buy it in separate sticks as well, and obviously if you do that, as with Milliput, you don't have the issue of an in situ reaction or an in storage reaction occurring and it's starting and you're losing some material. Yeah, so that's now smooth. So that's good. Let's have a look around. So a couple of little bits of filling on these wheels. So if I just grab my file again and just run it over those. These are only very small bits of filling, so there's not really much to do on those. A little bit there. So yeah, I think so. To conclude, I think Milliput has better working characteristics for filling resin voids. Also, it's better value. The main disadvantage is the slow setting time. Now, if you're working on metal parts only, you can actually set Milliput in about half an hour. But this only works with metal parts. Never try to do this on anything plastic or resin, so it will end in disaster. You do your milliputting, then put your metal part on a board and then point a hairdryer at it. Obviously stand the hairdryer up, make sure the rear vent is clear so there's a flow of air through. Don't block that, because otherwise it'll kill the hairdryer. And then just heat it up for maybe 10 minutes and it will get red hot. Well, not red hot, but it'll get very hot. But that catalyzes, or accelerates, should I say, accelerates the Milliput setting. And if you take the heat off and leave it to cool, it'll probably set within half an hour or so. So yeah, that's one trick you can do. But I used to use it a lot in the days of metal models. But now we're in an age mainly of resin and plastic, and it doesn't have the same application. Right, so now I'm going to work on this bit just to file this down. And the trick here is to look for the lines of the model that you're wanting to end up with and work to those. So I'm just going to start working on that. One thing I've not used and never really had an inkling to buy was liquid green stuff. So I'm not sure really if anyone's used liquid green stuff and what your opinions are on it. I mean, my take on liquid green stuff at the time, it was a sticking plaster solution to the problems of fine cast models, and it was largely developed as a way of giving people a product to try deal with the poor production quality of the early fine cast models, which could be truly abysmal. But the story of fine cast is a tale for another video. Interesting tale nonetheless. So now I'm just using a sharp scalpel to take a bit of this milliput away. So I've decided it's probably, there's a little bit more here than I filled it fairly proud. So I'm just carefully cutting it down so it's in line. It's in line with the hull, side of the hull. So trying my best to keep it in camera focus and position for you guys. The first video seemed to turn out reasonably well. Hopefully I'll be able to get the same result for you this time. There we go. Take that bit of excess away there. So that looks looking fairly decent now. And all the time what I'm doing here is just looking at the lines, the resin lines of the model, and thinking where I need to sand the milliput down and cut it down to basically fill that space that was missing in the original component. So this is very much a job of mimicry, we could say, to recreate what the part should have looked like had it been perfectly cast. Just dust that off. Like so. That's actually looking quite nice now. And the other thing you have to do is you also have to think about how it looks when you've worked on it, but also imagine what it looked like with the application of paint, because of course you're never going to get surfaces looking perfect. You have to visually perfect, but you need to sort of feel the form and get that right, because that's ultimately what you're going to see. There you go. I think let's see if there's any other bits. Yeah, a bit there. I think we'll maybe just a little bit of knife work there. Let's see. Yeah, and I think on this piece we're about done. I have to have a look at that bit there, see how it looks once it's all put together. Okay, it's only a few little areas as you can see, but it does make the difference if you want, as I say, if you want a model to look like it is a solid thing, and not with air bubbles and mold lines and what have you. This is obviously the way to overcome that. Now, before I go into the mine plow, just to show you where green stuff is, where I do use it. So I'm going to do, this is a complete genre switch. This is a Battletech model. This is a Thug Assault Battle Mech. I'm just going to show you this as an example where I use green stuff as opposed to milliput. So this guy, when you get it, this arm is raised up in a slightly odd pose, which I never liked. So I bought it, and then I cut the arm off, which I had to do with a knife as to not lose any of the shoulder articulation springs or diaphragm under the arm, which was quite difficult because this is a pewter alloy model, so it's very hard metal. So I cut it off, and then I cut some of the metal away, and then I repositioned the arm so both sides were sort of in a neutral, in an even stance. And what that then did is it left a large cavity or a void. And what I did is I used some green stuff, and I rebuilt. So I used on the other side for reference as well, mainly for reference. I then recreated the detail as if the sculptor had originally designed it. And this is where green stuff is particularly useful, because it's very good at holding shape as you work with it. Once you get the shape, it will hold that well, and it has enough rigidity before it sets to hold that. You can see there how I was able to get a really nice result on that one. Well, I was happy with it anyway, but you know, and that's just one example of where I would use green stuff. Doing that with Milliput would be, it's quite doable, but it would be harder work. Right, let's have a look at this guy and do a little bit on this now. So, right, if you remember, in the original video, there was a mold slip here. And I said, because of a rivet detail, I was going to build it up as opposed to file it down. So I've done that. But now it's a bit rough and ready. So we need to sand this Milliput filling down. So let's have a go at that. And see if we can cut it down so it looks indistinguishable from the resin part, certainly in terms of form. I hope you enjoyed the video on the the Warhammer World Open Day a few days ago, the New Year's Open Day. It's quite a decent little day. The New Year days, they don't tend to have that much stuff, because I think they do it as a bit of a goodwill thing to the customers, because they don't charge a lot really to go, because the ticket was £5, which included entrance into the gallery, and they normally charge £7.50 for an adult to do that. So I think they do it as a little bit of a discount day. Yeah, it was interesting, but there were still a few things there. Clearly the Adeptus Custodes are taking shape, and I was with the release of release of the Contemptor Galatus, if I remember rightly, and then the other vehicles. But the one that really caught my attention was the Grav Transport, the Coronis. For me, that is, out of the Grav vehicles they've done so far, that's one that really catches my eye, and the one that makes me feel like I will be prepared to part with some money for some Custodes. I imagine that's going to cost a bit. It's quite a large model. It's probably, I'm probably reckoning in probably around £120 is my gut feel. Difficult to tell, because the cost of these things is only partially dependent on the resin in it. A big driving factor is the part count, and if you want no further evidence of that, look at the realm of battle boards, which cost around, I think, about £96. They're a single piece, but the amount of resin in them is enormous. But it just goes to show that the resin is a relatively small part of the cost. What really drives the cost up is the number of components. But yeah, so interesting upcoming Custodes. Unfortunately for me, I was double booked, so I'm not able to go to the weekend in February, which is the main event of the Horus Heresy event year. So yeah, although I did buy tickets, I've had to give them on to some friends. So I won't be able to go there, and that's a shame. That I really did want to go, but needs you can't always make these things, can you? So I think it'll be one for next year as long as I can get hold of a ticket, which tends to be tricky. I'm going to move to a slightly larger file for the next bit. This is a larger version, we might say, that smaller needle file. I'm just going to sand this down a little bit to get the flat surface, because there's a bit of flat contact point, so there's a little bit of resin that had overlapped it. So you can see that I've smoothed that, start to smooth that down across here. Just need to do some more work on it. But yeah, so at the February weekender, I'm certain that they will release book 7, Inferno is going to be released. And probably not long after it, that will go on general sale as well. That was certainly the pattern from last year. I wonder. I'm also wondering what's in the pipeline for the Horus Heresy this year, because we had the Night Porphyrion, we had the Mastodon, and we seem to have had a lot of the stuff, certainly the big ticket items that were queued up. So yeah, as I say, they've got the there's a few bits of Custodes coming out. You know, and obviously that Graph Transport I think is a big release there, but there doesn't appear to be a really big item. So I wonder if Forge World are shifting their production focus, because of course we've got the upcoming release of the game called Titanicus, which is a revisiting of the original Adeptus Titanicus Space Marine or what ultimately became known as EPIC game. And I understand that Titanicus is going to be Forge World. Forge World doing the models and probably the rules as well. Kind of like a bit of a, don't know if that will count as specialist games, but I wonder if that's going to absorb their production capacity this year. So maybe we're going to see a bit less on the 40k or 30k scale, 32mm heroic scale models. We might see a bit of a shift away from them this year in terms of what Forge World produces, which I guess was fair enough, because well, we've had an enormous amount of stuff over the last few years. It'll give some of us a chance to catch up. I mean, there's a couple of things that are still that are outstanding. There's let me think. There's some Mechanicum things that are outstanding. That there is the Thanatar, was it Sinus or Sinus battle automata? So it's basically a Thanatar armed with a pair of short-range rapid-fire plasma projectors. That's not been released yet, and that, from reading the description in the rulebook and its weapon configuration, it's a distinct look. It does not look. It looks different to the stock Thanatar with the Helix plasma mortar and twin-linked Mauler bolt cannon. So that's one thing. Then there is also the Arlatax battle automata, which is essentially a battle automata equipped with something a bit like, not too far off a Castellax, and it's equipped with a jump pack. Yeah, it's going to be, it's a fun looking battle automata. I think it's I can see that one causing a lot of upset amongst the Legion players, because the Marines don't yet have a jump pack equipped dreadnought, which would be the equivalent counter. But yeah, so that's not been we've not seen that model yet, and I've not seen any imagery of it either, so it seems to be sat somewhere in the ether, that one. There's the Mechanicum character, Anarchiscoria, or Anarchariscoria, which is viewed by many people, including myself, as being a slightly quite an unbroken character and in need of rebalancing. So there's that chap. He's not got a model now. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the character series model of what's his name? The Dark Mechanicum guy. It's just dropped out of my head. But that model comes with a standard, like a hooded cowl, as well as a goat head face. There's a guy on the larger Bayant, so you know you've got a model which would actually work as Scoria as it is. But it'd be interesting to see if they actually do that. I mean, they've never done a model for Inar Satariel either, although arguably I guess they're probably thinking go buy Castellax and convert that, because that would be about right for him. Archmagos Dracovac, there you go, that was the guy I was thinking of, the first of the Dark Mechanicum. Yeah, Dracovac. So you could buy that model and do that as Scuria. Yeah, so it's interesting to see, and no doubt there'll be many people who take photos and share them with the rest of the community on the internet. So we'll get a feel for what they are working on and what is going to be coming up. Maybe we might even get a surprise and see the release of Titanicus, early release of Titanicus. That'd be a good little reveal, wouldn't it? So this is coming along nicely now. I'm not far off having this done. It's perhaps just a bit of a. I suppose there's less in terms of a narrative around how to do this. It's just a case of filing it down to get the shape, and alternating between using a scalpel for cutting sections away, and the needle file for sanding it down. Starting to look decent. Oops, starting to look something approaching decent now, this piece. I think it's probably going to take more work than I show on this particular video to probably finish it off, but what I'm hoping to show, what I'm showing here is the kind of like the key work that I'll do. I may do some more. I might even go back and fill a little bit more. I'm not sure yet. Depends how this goes as I sand it down. The other thing that's coming out from Forge World this year, or at some point, is the Imperial Armour Battle of Syraxus, or Syraxus, I believe. And this is going to introduce lots of the Horus Heresy era tech armament, so like the battle automata, so Thanatars and Castellax and Vorax, into the 40k universe. And not the open day this summer, I had a brief chat with Alan Bly about it, and he was sort of, sounds like they might put some extra rules in around the battle automata, basically saying that they have this on this particular planet, the technology is being preserved and retained, and there are members of the Cult Mechanicus or the Adeptus Mechanicus, because of course the Mechanicum isn't really an entity in 40k, who still know how to use it. However, it is seen as being very seen as being ancient and not, even by the standards of 40k, not well understood technology, and is used with a degree of trepidation, shall we say, even by the Adeptus Mechanicus. So I wonder if it's going to be, we're going to see some rules a bit like we get with the Relic Leviathan Dreadnought, which it's where it intimates basically that the kind of like the machine spirit control element, or the sub AI you might say, of the suit has gone a bit nuts over the millennia, and has made the suit and anyone interred within it unstable, and that carries through in terms of the battlefield performance. So I wonder if we may see some rules like that in Syraxis for the battle automata. I would expect so, because they never let but we're probably not going to see toys from a Heresy era completely untouched going into the 40k one. I also expect that certain Heresy era weapons, so probably anything Volkite based, and the dark fire cannons as well, I expect are not going to be translated into the 41st millennium. I suspect we will see some of the less esoteric weapons like the bolt cannons and the multi-melters coming through, and probably on the Vorax. But then again, I guess on the Thanatars, we're going to get, from the pictures I've seen thus far, they will carry their plasma mortar, so that'll be interesting. Anyway, so I think I'm going to draw this to a close now. Hope you found this an interesting demo. I'll just show you over what I've done. So I've filed that down, and we've got a reasonable shape. I mean, I'm going to spend more time doing this because it's not quite as smooth or as square or as sharp as I would like it. But you can see that not too far away, not too far on from here, that result is going to be achieved. So yeah, good. Anyway, so I think that draws a close to this one. There's one final installment to come in this series of videos, and in that I'm going to talk about what we can see a little bit of here, and what I'll show a bit more of, and that is this, which is interfacing or fitting resin components onto a Plastic Games Workshop kit, because so we've got hand cast, hand molded parts being fit onto machine metal molded, machined plastic parts, manufactured to a much higher level of tolerance. So, how do you deal with inconsistencies between the two? So, on that point, I'll leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed this. A little bit of a what's coming in 2017 talk along with the modelling as well. But yes, thank you very much for listening. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.